When you don't expect someone to bang on your front door after 2 a.m., the sound doesn't just wake you up, it punches you awake. I wasn't at a party. I wasn't living some glamorous life. I was in bed in Savannah, half asleep, thinking about a landscape client who wanted English ivy in a swamp. My 16-year-old daughter, Malene, was asleep down the hall. I'd heard her say goodnight at 10. Her door was closed. It was a quiet, humid Thursday night. The kind where the only danger is the air conditioning breaking. Then the pounding started, heavy, urgent. Red and blue lights swept across my ceiling fan. I grabbed my robe and checked the peephole. 2 uniformed officers, tense, serious. "Ma'am, are you Danielle Vance?" one asked. "We need to speak with you about a hit-and-run involving a 1967 Mustang registered to this address." My Mustang, the car I'd spent 5 years restoring. "It's in my garage," I said. "I have the keys." The officer shook his head. "It's currently embedded in a stone fountain downtown." Then he said the sentence that stopped my heart. "Witnesses identified the driver as your daughter. Before we go on, tell me where you're listening from and what time it is right now. I want to know who's here with me." Because in that moment, I realized this wasn't about a car. It was about which child my family was willing to sacrifice. The officers left around 2:45 a.m. I didn't go back to bed. I walked down the hall and cracked Malene's door open. She was curled beneath her weighted blanket, her charcoal sketchbook resting on her chest, breathing slow, deep. The sleep of a kid who had spent the night drawing, not committing felonies. Malene hates driving, not in a teenage way, in a fear way. She failed her permit test twice on purpose because the idea of hurting someone with a car terrifies her. The idea that she would steal a vintage convertible and joyride through Savannah was absurd. What made it unbearable was who signed the witness statement. My parents and my sister. I knew exactly where Lauren had been that night. The Midsummer Solstice Festival at the Tate Estate, champagne that costs more than my mortgage, bad decisions covered by NDAs. Lauren never misses a stage. For 20 years, I've been the invisible hand that cleans up after her. When she got a DUI in college, I drove 2 hours to bail her out so my father's name wouldn't hit the police blotter. When she accidentally walked out of a boutique with a diamond bracelet, I went back and paid for it before anyone noticed. She was the star. I was the crew. People ask why I stayed, why I kept fixing things that weren't mine. Toxic loyalty doesn't arrive all at once. It's a slow leak. You don't realize you're suffocating until you try to breathe and there's no air left. My parents taught me that protecting the family image was love, that silence was responsibility. "Danielle, be a dear and fix this. You're the strong one." I accepted strong because it was the only compliment they ever gave me. I didn't realize it was just their word for convenient. But that night, they didn't ask me to clean up a mess. They created one, using my car, using my child. The Mustang wasn't just transportation. It was 5 years of weekends, grease under my nails, something I built with my own hands. To Lauren, it was just a prop, a red accessory for a summer story. She didn't just steal my car, she stole my work. And then she tried to pay for it with my daughter's future. I sat in the dark kitchen listening to the refrigerator hum. I didn't cry, I didn't pace. I waited because I knew exactly what would happen next. At 8 a.m., my phone would ring. Not with an apology, with instructions. At exactly 8 a.m., my phone rang. Not a text, a call. That's how my mother handles situations that require obedience. I answered on the second ring and said nothing. "Danielle," she began, brisk and efficient. "We need to get ahead of this before it spirals." My father's voice joined the line, heavy and authoritative. "We've reviewed the statutes. Malene is 16. If she takes responsibility, the record is sealed. Community service. It disappears when she turns 18. I stared at the coffee maker, watching steam rise like something trying to escape. "And Lauren?" I asked. There was a pause, then irritation. "Lauren has contracts," my mother snapped. "A swimwear partnership launches next week. A DUI would violate morality clauses. We're talking about serious money." So I said it out loud. "You want my daughter, who's terrified of driving, to confess to a felony she didn't commit so Lauren can keep selling bikinis?" "Don't be dramatic," my father warned. "This is damage control. Lauren's career is vulnerable. Malene is resilient." The word landed hard. Asset, liability. They weren't talking about people. They were talking about numbers. Lauren was 30 years old. She chose to drive drunk. She chose to take my car. She chose to run. And yet, in their math, she was still worth protecting. Malene was 16, quiet, gentle, afraid of causing harm. That made her easy. That was when I finally understood what I'd spent decades avoiding. This wasn't favoritism. It was efficiency. Lauren reflected their vanity. My daughter reflected their inconvenience. If you don't corroborate our statement, my mother added, don't expect us to finance your projects next season. I ended the call. Seconds later, my phone buzzed again, Instagram. Lauren had posted a black screen with white text. Heartbroken by the betrayal I woke up to today. Scary when the people you trust hurt you most. #healing, #family trauma. She wasn't hiding, she was controlling the story. That was the moment the fog lifted. I wasn't their daughter, I was their fixer. And Malene wasn't a grandchild, she was collateral. They believed I would fold like I always had, trade truth for peace, silence for approval. But something had shifted. I wasn't reacting anymore, I was calculating. I looked down the hall at Malene's closed bedroom door and felt something unfamiliar settle in my chest. Not fear, not grief. Clarity. Protecting my daughter was never a question. That decision was already made. The only question was how cleanly this needed to end. That's when I stopped thinking like a daughter and started thinking like a professional. This wasn't a family crisis. It was a legal problem, a documentation problem. And I had always been very good with documentation. I walked into my home office and closed the door. This was where I negotiated city contracts and dismantled bad designs. My family thought I was just a gardener who got lucky. They forgot that architect is in the job title. I opened my contacts and pressed one name, Jeffrey Coles. He answered on the first ring. Danielle, settle or destroy. Total surrender, I said. They framed my daughter. There was a pause, then a pen scratching. Send me everything. I have something better, I said quietly. I have the black box. My parents and Lauren made one fatal mistake. They thought the Mustang was just a car. To them, it was a vintage prop, a red accessory for a summer night, something loud and flashy that looked good on camera. To me, it was an asset. And you don't spend 5 years restoring a $65,000 collector car without protecting it. 3 years earlier, during the final stage of restoration, I had a high-fidelity telematics system installed under the dashboard. Not just GPS, impact detection, location history, and a cabin audio recorder that activated automatically when the engine started or when a collision occurred. I logged into the security portal. There it was, 2:17 a.m., severe impact detected. A 45-minute audio file sat beneath the timestamp. I didn't hesitate. I put on my headphones. Jeffrey leaned back in his chair as the file loaded. The waveform filled the screen, jagged and alive. This is going to decide everything, he said quietly. I pressed play. The engine roared to life, deep and aggressive. Music blasted through the speakers, distorted and bass-heavy. Then Lauren's voice cut through the noise, laughing, slurring. Look at this interior, she shouted. Vintage everything. We are literally main characters right now. Jeffrey didn't look surprised. She was live streaming, he said. She broadcast her own DUI. The timestamp rolled forward. Cobblestones, laughter, then panic. Tires screeched. Metal slammed into stone. The audio spiked violently, then dropped into steam and alarms. Lauren sobbed. My phone, where's my phone? Footsteps rushed in. My parents. I braced for shouting. Instead, my father's voice came through calm and cold. Is the stream off? My mother snapped, Fix your face, we need a narrative. Lauren cried about the car, and then my father said the sentence that ended everything. The car was stolen. Malene fits the description. She's a minor. Her record gets sealed. My mother agreed without hesitation. We'll say we saw her run. I took off the headphones. There was nothing left to explain. This wasn't favoritism. This wasn't panic. It was a plan. Jeffrey removed his glasses slowly. This is conspiracy, he said. False police statements, obstruction, contributing to the delinquency of a minor. They framed my daughter, I said. He nodded once. They documented it for us. At 11 that morning, we walked into the police station. My parents sat in the lobby like they were waiting for brunch. Lauren clutched a tissue, playing the part of the traumatized victim. In the conference room, they repeated their story. Jeffrey connected his laptop. "Before you file those statements," he said, "we're submitting new evidence." He pressed play. Lauren's voice filled the room. Then the crash. Then my parents calmly designing my daughter's future like a legal workaround. No one spoke. Detective Miller stood up. "Mr. and Mrs. Vance," he said evenly, "you have the right to remain silent." My father turned to me, furious. "You're destroying your own family for a car." I looked at him steadily. "You weren't protecting family," I said. "You were protecting a brand." And I had just destroyed it. The fallout didn't arrive all at once. It came in quiet, irreversible pieces. Lauren was arrested that afternoon, DUI, leaving the scene, filing a false report. By evening, her agency dropped her. Sponsors pulled out. The swimwear launch vanished without a statement. The brand my parents had spent decades polishing collapsed in a single news cycle. They didn't call me. They called Jeffrey. He told them the truth they weren't ready to hear. There would be no spinning this. The audio was public record. Every word, every decision. My parents settled quickly. $150,000. Not an apology. A severance package for their own collapse. I never went to court. I didn't need to. The police cleared Malene that same day. No charges, no record, nothing for her future to outrun. That night, I sat on the edge of her bed while she drew. She didn't ask questions. She just leaned against my shoulder. For the first time since the knock at the door, she slept without flinching. 2 days later, my father called. I almost didn't answer, but I did. "You didn't have to go this far," he said. His voice wasn't angry anymore. It was small. "You chose money over your granddaughter," I replied. That choice was already made. There was a pause. "We were protecting the family," he insisted weakly. "No," I said. "You were protecting what made you look good." He tried again. "You've cut us off completely?" "Yes." "You're really willing to lose your parents over this?" I took a breath. "I already lost you," I said. "I just stopped pretending." After that, I blocked their numbers. No dramatic goodbye, no final speech. Just silence. Lauren tried to reach me once through a mutual contact. I didn't respond. Not because I hated her, but because I finally understood something simple. Closure doesn't come from confrontation. It comes from distance. 6 months later, the house was quieter. The Mustang was gone. I sold it for scrap. Not because I needed the money, but because I didn't need the symbol anymore. Malene painted in the afternoons now, loud colors, big shapes. No fear in her hands. I used to think cutting off family would leave a hole, a permanent absence. Instead, it created space. Space to breathe, space to protect, space where my daughter didn't have to be strong for anyone but herself. Justice wasn't Lauren losing everything. Justice was Malene never having to carry what wasn't hers. A year has passed since that night. Not the kind of year marked by milestones or announcements, the quiet kind, the kind where nothing explodes. And that's how I knew we were healing. Malene is 17 now. She still doesn't love driving. She probably never will. But she sleeps through the night. She laughs loudly. She paints without looking over her shoulder. No one has asked her to be strong again. I stopped fixing things that were never mine to fix. Stopped translating silence into love. Stopped confusing loyalty with self-erasure. Cutting off my family didn't create emptiness. It created room. Room for safety. Room for truth. Room for a child to grow without being weighed against someone else's image. For a long time, I thought justice meant watching the people who hurt us lose everything. I was wrong. Justice was simpler than that. Justice was my daughter never having to explain herself to adults who should have protected her. Justice was choosing documentation over denial, boundaries over obedience. And peace? Peace doesn't sound like apologies. It doesn't sound like closure conversations or dramatic endings. It sounds like a paintbrush moving across canvas, like a house that stays quiet at 2 a.m., like a mother knowing she did not hand her child to the fire just to keep others warm. If you've ever been asked to sacrifice yourself or your child to protect a family image, you're not selfish for saying no. You're responsible. And if this story resonated with you, I'd love to hear where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. Share your thoughts respectfully below. This is Family Justice Files. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away and build something safer.